Imagine buying into the stock market at the single worst moment of your lifetime. It's January 2000. The dot-com bubble is at its peak. You put your money into an S&P 500 index fund, and then you watch it fall. Not for a week, not for a month. The index that you bought near its top would not durably reclaim that high for years.
You created the mess we're in, and now you're saying, sorry, trust
earn
us.
as much as $50 billion each.
Internet fever has not subsided at all.
On the money tonight, internet fever again.
eBay up 700%.
What is going on in the world generally.
It lost a quarter of its value in just 1 week.
An investor who bought at the 2000 peak spent the better part of a decade underwater before fully recovering, once you account for the 2008 crash that hit on the way back up.
2008 was a tumultuous year for the economy.
30-year yields, for many reasons, are now at the lowest level, or were at the lowest level they've ever been at. Mark Haynes, back to you.
In every 20-year period from 1928 to 2005, though, the S&P 500 still produced a positive return. So even that investor, if they held on, came out ahead. That's the tension this whole video is built on, because the real question was never whether the S&P 500 can make someone rich. It obviously has for a lot of people. The real question is whether it can make you rich, given your timeline, your stomach for watching your account drop, and one factor most people never even think about until it's too late.
The S&P 500 rose 0.6%, and the Nasdaq added more than 1%. The S&P and Nasdaq notched new closing highs.
We'll get to that factor. Let's start with what you're actually buying. Quick one before the math. Where are you right now? Already investing in the S&P 500, skeptical that it's worth it, or someone who keeps meaning to start and hasn't yet? Drop one word in the comments. Investing, skeptical, or waiting? I'm genuinely curious how this channel splits, and by the end, you'll know exactly which group the data favors. So let's start with what you're actually buying. The S&P 500 tracks roughly 500 of the largest publicly traded companies in the United States. Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, JP Morgan, and 496 others. When you buy an S&P 500 index fund, you're not picking winners. You're buying a slice of all of them at once, and you're making one quiet bet that America's 500 biggest companies won't all fail at the same time. You don't buy the index directly. You buy a fund that tracks it, like Vanguard's VOO, iShares IVV, or State Street's SPY. They do essentially the same job. Now here's the number everyone quotes. The S&P 500 has a long-term historical average return of about 10% a year. Adjusted for inflation, that drops to about 7%. But that 10% is a lie of averages. In 97 years of data, only 5 of those years actually landed between 8% and 12%. The rest of the time, the index was doing something far more dramatic. In any given calendar year, returns have ranged from up 54% in 1954 to down 38% in 2008. The smooth 10% only appears when you zoom out over decades. Up close, it's a roller coaster. Here's the part that does the heavy lifting. Say you invest $300 a month starting at $25, and you earn 8% a year, slightly below the historical average, just to stay conservative. By 65, that grows to roughly $1 million. Now run it again, but start at 35 instead of 25. Same monthly amount, same return. You'd end with a little under half that. 10 fewer years of investing didn't cost you 10 years of money. It cost you more than half the final result. That's compounding, and it's why the single most powerful variable here isn't the return. It's time. Hold that thought, because it comes back. Now the uncomfortable part.
It was another tough day for retirement plans and stocks as the market continues to come down. The worst week since 2020.
In 2020, the S&P 500 fell 34% in just 5 weeks, from its February peak to its March low. The decade from 2000 to 2009 produced roughly negative 1% a year, a lost decade, and 2008 alone was down 38%. These aren't abstractions. For real people, those were 6-figure drops in their retirement accounts, and a very human decision: hold or get out. And the data on what happens when people get out is brutal. For the year ending December 2024, the average investor in stock funds earned about 16.5%, while the S&P 500 returned just over 25%, a shortfall of more than 8 percentage points. 2009 was the last time the average investor actually beat the index. Now, that research has its critics, so here's an independent check. A separate study found that over the past decade, fund investors earned about 7% a year, while the funds themselves returned 8.2%, meaning investors left roughly 15% of their funds' total returns on the table. Two different firms, same conclusion? Here's what that looks like in dollars. In 2024, a buy and hold investor who started with $100,000 in the S&P 500 ended the year with about $125,000. The average investor, moving money around at the wrong times, finished with about $112,000. Over $12,000 gone in a single year by doing more instead of less. The market didn't take that money, behavior did. So if individual years are chaos, why does anyone trust this thing? Because of what happens when you stretch the timeline. In every 20-year period from 1928 to 2005, the S&P 500 produced a positive return. The worst was about 3% a year. The best was almost 18%. Historically, no rolling 20-year holding period in the available US market record has ended with a loss after dividends were reinvested. Read that again. Not rarely. In the historical record, no 20-year holding period has ended in a loss, with dividends reinvested. That is not a guarantee about the future. Past performance never is, and the next 20 years could break the pattern. But very few assets can point to a track record like that. And recoveries have historically come faster than panic expects. After the 2020 crash, the S&P 500 fell 34% from its February peak, then closed at a new all-time high in August about 6 months later, and only about 5 months after its March low. The investor who sold in March to wait for things to settle missed a single-day rebound of more than 9%, and the rally that erased the entire drop within months. And this brings us back to that factor from the start.
We've seen a pretty nasty month of trading on Wall Street. If you take a look at the major indexes, they're down all over 7%.
Tariff threats as the S&P falls to its lowest point since September, as the stock market falls at one point more than 1,000 points before finishing the day at just under 900 points down.
The S&P 500 keeps pushing to record highs.
Mostly positive results this earnings season. 80% of companies have seen a positive EPS, earnings per share surprise.
The one most people miss. It's not the return, it's not even the timing, it's whether you can leave it alone. So, can the S&P 500 actually make you rich? Yes, with conditions, and they're not the ones most people expect. It works for you if you have a long runway, ideally 20 years or more, because that's where the never lost money track record lives. If you're investing money, you genuinely won't need to touch. If you keep buying through the scary months instead of freezing, and if your definition of rich is decades-long security, not a fast number. It won't work for you if you need the money in the next few years, where a badly timed 30% drop could force you to sell at a loss with no time to recover. If you'll bail the moment the market falls 20%. Or if you're carrying high-interest debt that's compounding against you faster than the market compounds for you, in which case that debt, not the index, is your real priority. The people who built wealth with the S&P 500 weren't the ones who timed the bottom or picked the perfect year. The data is blunt about this. They were the ones who started, kept going, and did less, who let time and compounding do the work while everyone around them was reacting to headlines. That's not a secret. There are nearly 100 years of data behind it. It's just genuinely hard to do. This isn't personal financial advice. Your timeline and your situation are yours, and a professional can speak to them directly. But the historical pattern is about as clear as patterns get. Here's the part nobody tells you when they pitch index investing. The strategy is simple. The hard part isn't understanding it. It's sitting still through the months when every headline is screaming at you to do something. The investors who win aren't smarter than you. They're the ones who didn't flinch. So go back to that one word from earlier, investing. Skeptical or waiting. Drop it below because I read them. And the split on a faceless finance channel like this one is always more interesting than people expect. And if this gave you a clearer picture than the usual just buy the index advice, subscribe to Worth It Finance. We don't hype, we don't guess, and we cite our numbers. See you in the next one.